This is Kate at the Library of Whispers, and today I'm going to tell you a couple of stories from Scandinavian mythology. But before I do, let me tell you something about Norse myths, as well as Greek myths. They were of an anonymous origin and related orally and passed down over time from person to person. And like Greek myths, Norse myths reflect a view of life as both adventurous, courageous, and hopeful. However, the universe as conceived in Norse mythology is a sombre place. The home of the gods is called Asgard, and it is cold and mist-shrouded, similar to the Scandinavian landscape during its icy dark winters. Very different from the perpetual spring on Mount Olympus. The Norse gods are a grand and powerful lot, but there are many evil forces beyond their control. The Norse gods know, from the prophecy of the fates, that evil will someday destroy Asgard and all creation. But in spite of this bitter knowledge, the gods continually fight against the evil frost giants and the mysterious natural forces about them. For to wage war against evil, in spite of certain defeat, is heroic. To die heroically in battle is a triumph, for ultimately they believe that courage can never be defeated. The humans in Norse mythology find life harsh. To live, they know, is to suffer. Rarely do they experience a warm moment and its accompanying joy. Humans are constantly engaged in one war or another, and those who die bravely are carried off to Valhalla, the great hall of the gods in Asgard. In fact, the only hope offered to the Norse gods and humans is the prophecy that after the forces of evil destroy all of the present creation, a new world and a new heaven, or Asgard, will be created where happiness will reign forever. Meanwhile, the present inhabitants of the current universe must accept constant suffering and certain defeat, but do so bravely. Only then will they be triumphant. So, let's begin with the story of creation. The Norsemen of long ago believed that in the beginning there was no sun and no moon. There were no stars to flicker in the deep black well of heaven. Rivers did not flow, or flowers grow on the hillsides, and no birds sang in the air, for the earth had not yet been made. Only a place of raging fire and a place of frozen cold existed, and in between these two stretched a huge gap of space. Within the gap, crystals of ice and flame whirled together endlessly. However, as they whirled, the warmth of the flame struck a spark in the ice. Life appeared in the emptiness. Ymir, the first frost giant, was born. He was huge and ugly, and his terrible voice echoed across all space. There also arose in the emptiness a great hornless cow whose milk Ymir drank until he had grown to a fantastic size. Then Ymir fell into a slept, the great hornless cow licked away the ice in search of food. As she licked, her tongue melted the frozen waste into the shape of a face. On and on she licked, forming the head and shoulders, arms, legs, feet, and hands, until finally a new giant was born. How different he was from Ymir and his monster brood, for this giant was beautiful beyond all telling, with blue eyes and hair like honey gold. This giant had 3 handsome sons, Odin and his 2 brothers, Hodir and Loda. These 3 were the Norse Gods and had the power to create a world, but first they had to get rid of Ymir. The 3 Norse Gods and Ymir fought a wild and terrible battle that roared and boomed across space for ages. In the end, however, the Norse Gods managed to kill the frost giant. They pushed his huge body out into the gap in space, and the blood that flowed from his wounds turned into salt water, which formed the oceans. The Norse Gods then made the earth from Ymir's body. His bones became the mountains, his teeth became huge boulders and stones. From the curve of his great skull they made the sky, and the sparks they fastened inside it became stars. The greatest spark of all became the sun, and a weaker spark became the moon, and so that all the earth might be warmed and cheered by this, they put them each into a golden chariot drawn by 6 fiery steeds, the sun in front, the moon behind. But the frost giants were filled with rage at what Odin and his brothers had done. The giants were creatures of darkness and the frozen waste. They hated the sun and all things warm. 2 of them took the shape of wolves and chased the terrified horses forever across the sky. In this way, day and night began, and you can still see the sun and moon move across the sky as wolves chase them. The Norse Gods then sent gentle rains and soft winds to play over the earth, and in the sun and rain Ymir's beard sprouted into grass, covering the earth with a rich green blanket. Tall forests of ash, pine and fir sprouted from Ymir's hair. The Norse Gods looked upon the world they had made, seeing how beautiful it was, Passing over the earth, the three brother gods came upon a pair of ash trees standing side by side. From these they formed man. Odin blew upon the trees, giving to each tree a soul, and he, in his turn, gave them the power to think and the will to move. Loder added of blood and human feeling. In the ages that followed, the trees took on human shape and became the first man and woman, and they were beautiful in the eyes of the gods. Truly, said Odin, these are my children. I will watch over them and love them for as long as they dwell upon the earth. Now let me tell you the story of Yggdrasil. In the midst of all that had been created stood Yggdrasil, the great ash tree. It was the world tree, the tree of all life. Its branches spread over all the earth and rose higher than even a god could see. Yggdrasil had 3 roots, which stretched to 3 wells. The first of the wells was in the land of the frost giants. It was the well of all wisdom, and it belonged to Mimir. Odin had once come to this well for a drink, but Mimir had made Odin pledge one of his eyes for a single